The night sky above the alien world was dark and heavy, filled with strange stars that looked nothing like Earth's familiar constellations. The human engineer, James Carter, stood at the base of the broken signal tower, staring at the long ladder that disappeared into the shadows above. His mission was simple, or at least it sounded simple when his commander gave it to him. Go to the abandoned station, climb the tower, fix the transmitter, and return to base. But nothing about this place felt simple. The land around the tower was silent, too silent. No insects, no animals, not even the soft whistle of wind. James felt uneasy, as if the air itself was holding its breath. He adjusted the toolkit on his belt and began the climb. Each step on the ladder echoed in the emptiness. The metal felt cold under his hands, colder than it should be. His flashlight beam cut through the shadows, revealing cracked panels and rusting bolts. Just wires, just circuits. He whispered to himself, trying to calm his nerves, but deep inside, he knew something was wrong. Halfway up the tower, he stopped to catch his breath. That was when he thought he saw movement, a flicker of shadow at the edge of his light. His heart jumped, but when he swung the beam around, there was nothing, only the still, lifeless ground below. He shook his head and kept climbing, telling himself it was only his imagination. At the top, the transmitter box waited like a sleeping beast, panels open, wires torn, circuits dead. James knelt beside it, opening his kit. He worked with steady hands, twisting wires, tightening screws, and checking circuits. But every second he felt a strange pressure on his back, the sense that unseen eyes were watching him. The silence grew louder. His own breathing and the click of tools were the only sounds. Sweat rolled down his neck despite the cold air. He muttered, "Almost done. Just a few more connections." Suddenly, the transmitter sparked. A small flash of blue light jumped from the wire. James smiled with relief. That was the sign he was close. The circuits were alive again. He leaned closer, attaching the final line. And then, it happened. A soft voice, powerful yet delicate, whispered right behind him, close enough to brush his ear. The words were clear, impossible to mistake. "My husband." James froze. His entire body stiffened. The tool slipped from his hands and clattered against the metal floor. He turned sharply, his flashlight swinging through the darkness. But no one was there. The platform was empty. The ladder stretched down into the shadows. The night sky remained cold and distant. His heart hammered in his chest. "Who's there?" he called. His voice shook, echoing in the silence. No answer came. For a long moment, he stood still, gripping the edge of the panel with trembling hands. The whisper was too real, too close. He knew he did not imagine it. James forced himself to finish the repair. Every second felt like an hour. Every click of his tools sounded like a scream in the silence. He wanted to run, but his training kept him there. Finally, the transmitter lit up, green lights glowing across the panel. The tower hummed with new life. He had done his job, but the relief did not come. Instead, the whisper echoed in his mind, repeating, "My husband." When he climbed down the tower, his hands shook so badly he almost lost his grip. The ground felt unsteady beneath his boots. He turned in circles, scanning the empty station. His light caught nothing but broken walls and silent machines. Yet he felt it. The presence, someone, or something, was there, watching, waiting. The mission was supposed to be easy, but James now knew the truth. This was not a broken tower in an abandoned place. This was a doorway, and he had just stepped through it. James reached the ground, his boots sinking lightly into the soft alien soil. His flashlight beam shook in his trembling hand. He told himself it was only the wind, only the tower echoing strange sounds. But deep inside, he knew he had heard something alive, something real. He checked his comlink. Static crackled, but no human voice answered. The signal tower was working now, but his headset was empty. That was when he felt it. The air changed, warmer, heavier, filled with a faint perfume that did not belong to machines or dust. He turned slowly, and then he saw her. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. A tall, graceful figure stood a few steps away, glowing softly in the darkness. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered pale silver, as if made of starlight. Her long hair flowed like liquid crystal, catching every spark of his lamp, and her eyes, huge, radiant, glowing with deep violet light, looked straight at him. James stumbled back, almost dropping his light. His mind screamed to run, but his body froze. She raised her hand slowly, a queen's gesture, calm yet commanding, and her lips parted, speaking in the same soft voice that had whispered in his ear at the top of the tower. "My husband, you have come at last." James shook his head. No, you've made a mistake," he stammered, his voice cracked like broken glass. "I don't even know you." Her gaze did not waver. She stepped closer, and the ground itself seemed to bend to her presence. Behind her, shadows moved. James realized she was not alone. Tall figures in armor appeared, their bodies covered in bronze plates, their faces hidden behind glowing masks. They carried long weapons, but none were raised. Instead, they bowed their heads to him. James could not breathe. "This is wrong," he whispered. "I'm just an engineer. I'm here to fix a transmitter, that's all." The alien queen smiled faintly. Though her smile carried sadness, her voice was heavy with memory. "Long ago, our seers told us, a human would climb the broken tower. A human would bring light to our dying signal. And when he did, he would belong to me." James wanted to laugh, wanted to scream, but the words stuck in his throat. "Belong to you?" he finally said, his voice trembling. "I don't even know your name." She placed a hand upon her chest. "I am Serenia, Queen of the Starborn," she said. Her voice was like a song, both gentle and unshakable. "And you are the one I have waited for across years and stars." James stumbled back until his shoulders pressed against the cold metal of the tower. "No, this is impossible," he whispered. "I don't believe in prophecies. I don't believe in fate." But her violet eyes seemed to pierce into him, and for a strange moment, a memory that was not his flickered across his mind. Images of fire, of a great palace crumbling, of her standing in the ruins, whispering his name, though he had never told her his name. "James Carter," she said softly, and his blood ran cold. How do you know that?" he gasped. Serenia stepped closer, so close he could see the faint patterns glowing across her skin, like living tattoos that pulsed with energy. "Because," she said, "your soul has walked here before." James shook his head violently. No, this isn't real." His hands trembled as he held the flashlight tighter. The guards remained bowed, silent and still, as if they too were part of the prophecy. The queen reached out her hand. Her fingers were long and elegant, glowing faintly blue at the tips. "You repaired the tower. You answered the call," she whispered. "You are mine." James backed away. "I am no one's," he said. His voice cracked, but his heart pounded with defiance. "I don't belong to you. I don't belong to anyone." The queen tilted her head, her eyes sad. "You will understand soon," she said. And then, from the far horizon, a deep rumble shook the ground. A red glow rose in the distance, burning across the sky like fire. The guards straightened, raising their weapons. Their voices boomed in a language James did not understand. Serenia turned her head sharply toward the glow. Her calm voice turned heavy with command. "The enemy comes sooner than I expected," she said. Her eyes returned to James. "Your arrival has awakened them." James stood frozen between fear and disbelief. He had come here only to fix a broken machine. Yet now an alien queen called him her husband, her prophecy fulfilled, and in the distance, war was already on its way. The silence was broken. The real story had just begun. James stood frozen between the towering queen and her armored guards. The night air was heavy with smoke drifting from the horizon, where the red glow of enemy fire grew brighter with every passing second. He wanted to run, to call for help, but his comlink still carried only silence. The tower hummed behind him, alive again, yet it offered no comfort. The queen's voice carried through the silence, soft yet filled with unshakable certainty. "Do you not feel it, James Carter? The pull of destiny, the bond written before time itself." James shook his head. "No, I don't believe in destiny." His voice cracked with both fear and anger. "I'm an engineer, nothing more. I came here to repair, not to be anyone's husband, not to be part of some alien prophecy." But the queen's violet eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the fire rising in the distance. "You think you chose this path," she whispered, "but your path chose you." She gestured, and the guards stepped aside, forming a path. Behind them, An alien carriage hovered just above the ground, sleek metal glowing with blue veins of energy. James stared, his mind racing. Every instinct told him not to follow, but the queen simply raised her hand again, waiting. He hesitated, then whispered to himself, "If I stay here, I'll die alone." With shaking legs, he stepped forward. The guards bowed slightly, acknowledging his movement. As he neared the queen, the faint perfume of her presence filled his lungs, sharp yet strangely calming. Inside the hovering carriage, the air was warm and filled with soft humming light. Strange markings glowed on the walls, shifting like living patterns. The queen sat opposite him, her posture regal but her eyes soft. "Do you wish to know why I called you my husband?" she asked. James clenched his fists. "Yes, and I need to know why you know my name." Her lips curved into a sad smile. "Because your soul once walked beside mine. In another age, in another war, you stood where you stand now. When our empire burned, when our enemies tore our stars apart, you were there. You promised to return, and now you have." James leaned back, shaking his head violently. No, I don't believe this. I have no memories, no past life. I fix machines, I don't save empires, I don't belong here." But even as he spoke, a sharp pain pricked at his temple. Images flashed like sparks, ruins collapsing, alien skies burning red, Serena's face crying out in grief, his hand reaching for hers across flames. He gasped, gripping the edge of the seat. What is happening to me?" The queen reached across the space, her glowing fingers brushing lightly against his hand. "Fragments of memory, echoes of what you were. You cannot hide from yourself." James pulled back, fear overwhelming him. "No, I don't want this. I just want to go home." The carriage slowed. Outside, he saw it. An alien city rising from the dark landscape, towers of crystal and metal spiraling into the night sky, bridges glowing with rivers of light. The city pulsed as though alive. Yet James noticed scars too, burned edges, walls still cracked from old battles. The queen's voice lowered. "This is why I called you. Our enemies are coming to finish what they started. The prophecy said only when the human returned could we stand against them." James pressed his hands to his face. "But why me? I'm nobody." "You are more than you know," Serena whispered. "And whether you accept it or not, this world has already named you their chosen king." The carriage entered the gates of the shining city. Hundreds of alien citizens filled the streets. Their eyes glowed in many colors, blue, gold, green. But when they saw James, they knelt. Thousands bowed in silence. Their voices rose in one united chant, strange words he could not understand. James' chest tightened. "No, stop this. I don't deserve this." His words were swallowed by the echo of the crowd. The queen looked at him, her face calm but her eyes shining with something between sorrow and hope. "You cannot run from destiny. James Carter, you repaired the tower. You awoke our world. And now you must choose, stand with us, or watch us burn." As the chanting continued, James' heart pounded louder than the voices outside. He wanted to scream, to deny, but deep within him, beneath fear and denial, a dangerous thought whispered, what if she was right? What if destiny was real? The chanting in the streets echoed in James's ears long after the carriage passed through the glowing gates. Everywhere he looked, alien faces bowed, eyes shining with belief, voices lifting in reverence. To them, he was not a stranger, not an engineer, but someone foretold, someone who carried the weight of their survival. James sat stiffly in the queen's carriage, his mind a storm. He wanted to shout that they were wrong, that he was only human, only one man. But the weight of thousands kneeling crushed his words. He glanced at Serena, the queen. Her calm expression did not waver, yet her eyes carried a hidden storm. As the carriage rolled through the city, James noticed something beyond the glowing towers and shining bridges. Many buildings bore scars, blackened stone, shattered glass, broken spires reaching like bones into the night. The city was beautiful, but wounded. Who did this? James asked quietly. The queen's voice lowered, almost a whisper. Our oldest enemy, the Vadran. They came once before. They burned half our world. They destroyed the beacon you repaired. The prophecy said they would return when the stars burned red again. James shivered, remembering the crimson glow he had seen on the horizon. And you think, I can stop them. Her eyes fixed on him, unblinking. Not think, James, no. Before he could argue, the carriage slowed before a vast palace of crystal and silver. Alien guards lined the steps, lowering their spears as Serena stepped out. James followed reluctantly, his boots clicking on the polished floor. Inside, the air hummed with strange energy. Murals painted across the walls showed battles, stars breaking, and always, a human figure standing beside the queen. At the far end of the chamber, alien counselors waited. Their eyes glowed in shades of emerald and gold. They whispered as James entered. Some bowed deeply. Others stared with open distrust. One counselor, tall and severe, stepped forward. His voice was sharp as metal. Your Majesty, this cannot be him. He is fragile, weak. Look at him. He is only flesh. He cannot be the one. James flinched, but Serena raised her hand. Silence, Counselor Veros. The prophecy chose him, not you. Murmurs filled the hall. Some voices rose in doubt, others in support. James felt the pressure mounting. He wanted to vanish, to crawl back into the tower and hide among wires and circuits. Then, without warning, the chamber trembled. A low boom shook the walls. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Guards rushed to the windows. Their cries filled the hall. They are here, one shouted. The Vadran fleet has entered orbit. The council erupted in chaos. Voices clashed. Fear spread like fire. Some shouted to fight, others to surrender. Veros pointed at James. This is their doing. You brought him. And the enemy followed. James's chest tightened. He stepped back, every eye in the room burning into him. He felt smaller than ever. But Serena rose, her voice slicing through the noise like a blade. Enough, she commanded. The hall fell silent. The Vadran come whether James Carter walks among us or not. He is not the cause. He is the answer. James swallowed hard, his voice cracking. I'm no answer. I'm just a man. I fix machines. I don't fight wars. Serena turned to him, her eyes softer now. That is exactly why you are chosen. You see what we cannot. You think where we only fight. James shook his head, but before he could protest, a holographic map shimmered into life at the center of the chamber. Alien ships filled the skies above the planet, sharp black silhouettes blotting out the stars. The red glow on the horizon was not fire from the ground. It was the light of their engines cutting through the atmosphere. The counselors gasped, their fear breaking into open panic. James stared at the display, his stomach twisting. He could not believe what he was seeing. The Queen's voice carried over the terror. You see now, James, the Vadran will burn this world again, but with the beacon alive, and with you here, destiny has given us one chance. James's hands shook, sweat dripping from his brow. He whispered, almost to himself, why me? From the shadows of the chamber, a different voice answered, deep and cold. Because you carry the key. James spun. His eyes searched the dark corners of the hall. A figure stepped forward, tall, cloaked, face hidden beneath a silver mask. Even the counselors stepped back in fear. Serena's eyes narrowed. The cloaked figure's voice echoed. The prophecy is not about love alone. It is about betrayal. The one who repairs the beacon is the one who decides which empire survives. James's blood ran cold. Betrayal, choice, war. It all swirled around him like a storm. He realized the Queen's claim was not the whole truth. The prophecy was bigger, darker, and now he was at the center of it. And outside, the skies were already burning. The palace shook again as another distant explosion thundered through the alien city. The council chamber filled with fear, counselors shouting over one another, accusing, blaming. Their glowing eyes turned again toward James, the outsider, the human. Counselor Veros pointed at him, his voice sharp as a blade. This is madness. We cannot place our hope in this fragile creature. He will doom us all. James felt the pressure of their stares. He wanted to deny everything, to say they were right. But Serena's eyes held him still, her calm voice cutting through the storm. He is here because destiny wills it. You doubt because you cannot see what I see. James's heart pounded. He whispered to himself, I can't fight a war. I don't know how. But then his gaze fell on the holographic map still floating in the air. He saw the swarm of enemy ships pressing into orbit, their formation precise, their strategy sharp. and something inside him stirred, not the warrior's instinct, but the engineer's mind. "Wait," he said, louder this time. His voice trembled but carried a spark of determination. "You don't need me to fight with swords or weapons, but I can fight with this." He pointed at the map. "Show me the systems of your city, your towers, your grids, your defenses. I need to see everything." The counselors murmured in disbelief, but Serenia raised her hand. "Do as he says," she ordered. Moments later, another hologram lit up, showing the vast network of energy lines running through the city like glowing veins. James's eyes darted across the display. He saw connections, weak points, hidden strengths. He muttered under his breath. "It's like a machine, a living machine." The counselors stared as James moved closer to the projection. His hands traced invisible lines in the air. "Your enemy expects you to fight them the way you always have, with armies, with soldiers, but they don't know you repaired your beacon. They don't know you have someone who sees differently." Vero scoffed. "What can you possibly see that we cannot?" James's voice grew steadier. "You built your towers for signals, for warnings, but the same energy that calls across the stars can also blind the skies. If I rewire your systems, I can turn the beacon into a weapon, a flash strong enough to confuse their sensors, to throw their fleet into chaos." The chamber fell silent. Even Veros's face hardened with reluctant attention. Serenia's eyes glowed brighter. "You would turn our warning into a shield," she said softly. James nodded. "I can't promise it will stop them, but it will give you a chance, a window to strike. Without it, you'll be fighting blind." The counselors whispered among themselves. Some argued it was too risky. Others said it was madness. But Serenia's voice ended the debate, firm and absolute. "He will do it. Prepare the towers." James's chest tightened as the guards led him from the chamber. He whispered under his breath, "What am I doing?" But even as fear gnawed at him, his hands itched for the tools at his belt. This was what he knew. Not destiny, not war, but machines, wires, systems. At the base of the great beacon tower, he began his work. Alien engineers stood by, watching in silence. Their technology was strange, but not beyond his reach. He pulled circuits apart, rerouted glowing threads of energy, rewired conduits that pulsed like living veins. Sweat poured down his face as the ground shook again. Above, the skies roared with the sound of enemy engines entering the atmosphere. But James kept working, his mind sharp, his hands steady. One alien engineer finally broke the silence. "How do you know what to do? This is not your world." James paused, his eyes fixed on the glowing lines of power. "Machines speak the same language everywhere," he whispered. "You just have to listen." Hours passed like minutes. The system came alive under his touch. The beacon pulsed brighter, stronger, no longer a signal alone, but something far more dangerous. At last, James stepped back, his voice low. "It's ready." The Queen arrived, her violet eyes glowing in the tower's light. "You have done what none of us could," she said softly. "You have given us a chance." But before James could answer, the cloaked figure from the council chamber appeared again in the shadows. His cold voice carried a warning. "You build your weapon, but remember this. Light can blind both enemy and ally. One spark of betrayal, and your queen will fall." James's heart pounded. He wanted to question him, but the figure melted back into the dark, leaving only silence. He turned back to the tower, to the queen, to the waiting city. For the first time since this began, he felt not like a victim of prophecy, but like a man who could change the tide. Yet the whisper of betrayal haunted him. What if the figure was right? What if the same weapon he had built to save them could also destroy them? The beacon hummed louder, and the night sky burned with enemy fire. The moment of truth was close. The night sky tore apart with fire as the Vadran fleet descended. Their ships, sharp as black knives, cut through the clouds. Engines burned crimson, casting rivers of red light across the alien city. The beacon tower stood tall, pulsing with power, its veins of energy glowing brighter under James's modifications. He stood at its base with tools still in his hands, his chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. The queen stood beside him, her violet eyes fixed on the burning horizon. "Now," she said softly, "show them the strength of a human mind." James swallowed hard and pulled the final switch. The beacon roared to life. Light burst from the tower, not as a simple signal, but as a blinding wave. It shot upward, spilling into the skies, wrapping the Vadran fleet in a storm of brilliance. On the holographic screens inside the palace, enemy formations scattered, their ships twisted in confusion, sensors blinded, engines sputtering against the overload. The council gasped, warriors shouted in triumph. Serena's people lifted their voices in hope. James's heart pounded. It worked, he whispered. But hope never lasts long. From the darkness beyond the blinded fleet, larger ships appeared, massive war vessels that ignored the light. They pushed forward, shields glowing, weapons charging. The Queen's warriors scrambled, launching their own fighters. The city trembled under the impact of the first enemy strike. Inside the palace, chaos erupted again. Counselors shouted, orders clashed, fear broke discipline, and in the middle of it, James noticed something. Counselor Veros was gone. His seat stood empty, his guards missing. At the tower, James's system flickered, warning lights flashing. Someone was rerouting power. He realized too late. Betrayal. Serena, he shouted. Someone's tampering with the lines. Even as he spoke, the beacon stuttered, its blinding wave collapsing into sparks. The Vadran fleet steadied, their formation returning. Their weapons glowed with deadly fire. The Queen's eyes narrowed, fury flashing like lightning. Veros, she whispered. He has opened the gates for them. James's mind raced. He had to choose. Repair the beacon under fire, or chase the traitor who threatened the Queen herself. The choice tore at him. Every second wasted meant lives lost. Serena placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice steady, even with destruction shaking the city. Go, James. I will hold the palace. Only you can bring the beacon back to life. James hesitated, fear burning in his chest, but he nodded. He grabbed his tools and ran, climbing the tower under the rain of fire. Each step shook with explosions, the air filled with smoke, sparks, and screams. At the top, he ripped open the panel. Circuits glowed red, wires twisted out of place. Someone had sabotaged it deliberately. His hands moved fast, reconnecting, rerouting, burning his skin on hot metal. He gritted his teeth, whispering, "Come on, come on." Below, the city burned. Fighters clashed in the skies, beams of energy slicing through towers. Serena's voice echoed in the distance as she led her warriors, her blade glowing violet. She fought like a storm. Yet James knew even a queen could not stand forever against the swarm. Finally, with a scream of effort, James forced the system alive again. The beacon roared, stronger than before. A second wave of light burst outward, brighter, harsher, cutting through the enemy fleet like a tidal wave. This time, the massive war vessels staggered. Their shields flickered, collapsing under the overload. Dozens of enemy ships spiraled downward, fire trailing from their engines. The alien city erupted in cheers. But James did not cheer. His eyes caught a shadow moving across the rooftops. Veros, the traitor, running toward the palace with a blade in his hand, straight for Serena. "No!" James shouted. He leapt down from the tower, sliding across metal beams. His legs screamed with pain, but he pushed forward, racing across the battlefield. The roar of engines and the crack of weapons filled the night. In the palace courtyard, Serena turned just as Veros lunged. His blade gleamed red with enemy fire. James threw himself forward, tackling Veros before the blade struck. They crashed into the stone floor, struggling. James was no warrior, no soldier, but desperation gave him strength. The traitor hissed, "You don't belong here. Human, you are not her husband. You are her doom." James forced the blade aside, his voice ragged. "Maybe I don't belong. Maybe I'm not chosen, but I won't let you decide for me." With a final push, he sent the blade clattering across the floor. Guards rushed in, seizing Veros as he screamed. Serena stood over them, her voice calm but edged with sorrow. "It is finished." James collapsed to the ground, gasping. The beacon still pulsed above, the enemy fleet retreating. Under its light, for now, the city was safe. But as he looked up into Serena's eyes, he saw not only victory, but something heavier, the weight of choice, the shadow of destiny, and the question that still haunted him. Was he truly her salvation, or her doom? The city was quiet at last, Smoke drifted in lazy spirals above the broken towers. Fires flickered but no longer roared. The beacon still glowed, its light a steady heartbeat across the skies. Enemy ships were gone, scattered to the far edges of space. James stood on the palace balcony, his body aching, his hands raw from burns. He stared at the alien skyline, half shattered, half shining. Thousands of eyes below looked up at him. The same people who had once doubted now whispered his name with reverence. But James felt no triumph, only the heavy silence after chaos. He whispered to himself, "I never wanted this." Behind him, Serena approached, her violet eyes softer than before. She no longer looked only like a queen of prophecy. She looked almost human, almost vulnerable. Her voice carried sadness. "Your hands saved us, James Carter. Without you, the Vadran would have burned us again." James shook his head. "I saved no one. Not really. I just fixed a machine. I just did what I always do." She touched his shoulder lightly. "And yet, it was enough to turn the tide. Machines bend to you because your spirit bends nothing. That is why destiny chose you." James turned, his jaw tight. "Destiny, prophecy, chosen husband. Serena, I am a man, not a legend. I have a life. I have a home. I can't just stay here." Her eyes flickered, pain hidden beneath her calm. "Earth," she whispered, the word tasting foreign on her lips. "Your home." For a long moment, they stood in silence, two worlds bound together in one impossible choice. Inside the palace, the council gathered again. Some bowed to James, others still doubted, but none spoke against him openly. Counselor Veros, the traitor, was gone, banished to the darkest cells. His betrayal lingered like a shadow, a reminder that even in victory, enemies still waited within. James faced them, his voice low. "I can't be your king. I'm not made for crowns. I don't belong to your throne." The council muttered in shock, but Serena raised her hand, silencing them. She looked at him, her voice calm but heavy. "Then what do you choose, James Carter? To return to the stars that raised you? Or to remain where fate has bound you?" James's heart raced. He imagined Earth, the smell of rain, the noise of cities, the taste of coffee in the morning, familiar, safe. Yet as he looked at Serena, at the scars across her city, at the people who now breathe because of his hands, something inside him pulled in the opposite direction. He whispered, almost to himself, "What if both worlds need me? What if leaving one means losing the other?" Serena stepped closer, her voice barely more than a breath. "Then perhaps your choice is not between Earth and us. Perhaps your choice is whether you believe in destiny at all." Her words cut deep. His whole life he had rejected fate, choosing logic, machines, the certainty of wires and circuits. But here he was, standing between stars, a queen calling him husband, a prophecy unfolding in every shadow. The crowd outside grew louder, chanting again. The sound rose like a wave, names, prayers, hope. They called to him. They saw not an engineer, but something greater. James turned back to Serena, his lips parted, his voice trembling. "If I stay, if I accept this, then everything changes." She met his gaze, her eyes glowing brighter. "It already has." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then James stepped forward, close enough that the glow of her skin lit his face. His voice broke with the weight of it all. "What if destiny is real, and I am already part of it?" Serena's lips curved into the faintest smile, but her eyes shimmered with something unspoken, neither joy nor sorrow, something in between. And above them, the beacon pulsed once more, not as a machine, but as a living star, carrying their choice into the endless dark. The story did not end, it was only the beginning.